The NFL is back in the, I guess you can say, full swing of things. But what really is back in the full swing of things? And, entered into week 2, no preseason or anything like that. And one would think that the NFL would be doing kind of an NBA approach and having maybe not a bubble per se, but at least having, empty stadiums. Making that assumption would also make you wrong because the NFL did in fact have fans in the stadiums for these first 2 weeks. And in the first week, very first game, it was the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson, who recently signed a massive contract, going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who Patrick Mahomes had signed a gargantuan contract, which makes anyone else's ever in the history of really any organized sport outside of baseball, where there are regularly a couple $100 million deals made, just look small. And, things were off to a bumpy start, let's say. It all started with a moment before your kickoff and everything, when, as tradition goes before sporting events, the national anthem was carried out in the pregame traditions that always go on, and there were numerous players that took a knee in solidarity with the number of the movements that are going on now, and again, to deconstruct taking a knee during the national anthem, it's been a controversial topic since back in 2017, fall of 2017, when Colin Kaepernick was still in the NFL, and he began taking a knee, which he checked with a former service member before to see what would be a respectful way to protest during the national anthem. And the service member replied, taking a knee during the national anthem would be just that thing. But suffice to say, even with a respectful means of protest during the national anthem, Colin Kaepernick was met with huge controversy, and he was the topic for a solid year and a half, and hasn't played since that fall of 2017 in the NFL, when he certainly has the skill and experience to still be a quarterback in this league, which is appalling, but that's a whole other topic. But the pervasive issue of kneeling and peacefully protesting, and respectfully protesting also, mind you, during the national anthem, is still a prevalent topic now, especially with our current social climate and everything going on. And so one would think that then kneeling at the national anthem at the first NFL game back, people would just, finally get the message and, get on board, just be like, okay, we're going through some tough times right now. Let's be respectful of these people who are peacefully protesting during the national anthem. But that was not the case. And what happened instead was you had the few fans who were in attendance for this game booing and just jeering the players who were well within their rights to do a very respectful means of protesting during the national anthem. And the funny thing out of all of this is that those fans that booed those players on the very first NFL game back of this season, those fans now are in quarantine. And it's not funny in a ha-ha sense. It's funny in an ironic sense, because these fans were saying what you're doing, is wrong, and you shouldn't be doing this, and how dare you? And then the fans themselves are doing something that they actually shouldn't be in terms of public health, an immediate personal impact of health, and that was congregating in a mass group, because now there were people within there who tested positive for the COVID virus, and then everyone within that group, that swath of people, is now having to self-quarantine and isolate, because, well, then they could also be carriers of it. And it makes you wonder, what things is the NFL okay with, and what things is the NFL not okay with? Because the NBA, you look at other sports leagues, and you can see activism within the league offices themselves. Now, the NBA, you can talk about the controversy that went on in China last year when there were the Hong Kong protests, and the NBA took a kind of we're hands-off approach, because China is a big business partner with the NBA. And the NBA, though, in other regards, especially in a lot of the movements going on in our society with Black Lives Matter and a number of other things, has been very supportive of the players and their means of protest. And you don't see that with a lot of sport leagues. And with the NFL, they're trying to rehab their image, but they're still certainly looked at as the big titanic corporation that's just squashing players' individual beliefs and to an extent freedoms. And it's very jarring to look at the NFL, which does hold so much power still, and they're not supporting their players. Now they're not actively going against players like they did with Colin Kaepernick. They're now instead just passively sitting back and saying, and just not saying anything, but at the same time, they're subjecting their fan base to possible health crises of their own by letting them into the stadiums. And it's just, you have to wonder, why is the NFL doing that? How much is it hurting their bottom line to not have fans in the stadiums and eating concessions and doing all these things? And granted, each team's financial makeup is not the same as the other one right next to them, but there's a time and a place for everything. And when we're in the midst of a pandemic, and professional sports, collegiate sports, and any level of sporting events are all in question and all under this large umbrella of, can they even go on right now? But you're letting fans into this event, and it's not just like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 fans. It's a couple thousand. It's a couple thousand fans in your stadiums. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people to have in your venues. The MLB has been back longer than the NBA and the NFL, and they haven't had fans in their stadiums. And it's just, you have to wonder, why is the NFL doing this? You have to wonder, why is the NFL not reading the writing on the walls and saying, we need to change with the times? That's the one thing that NBA has been really fantastic about, is that they have always been very supportive of players and prevalent movements among society and the players, both in a domestic and global market. The example of the Hong Kong protests not being a good one, because they violated exactly what I'm saying now. But in most instances, as far as major professional sports corporations go, the NBA's done a great job. They've done a banner job considering all the facts and parameters that are in place. But you go over again to the NFL, what are they doing? Your fan base is still just looking at you and saying, why don't you pick a side on the fence? Why don't you try and adopt a viewpoint that, again, is a sign of the times and change with the times, instead of sticking by with a lot of what I think the policy of the owners is, the owners of the league and the various franchises within it, because those guys seem to be pretty unwielding in terms of what they do and do not allow their players to do on the field, and how to conduct themselves in the field, and will put down their own personal viewpoints of what they think the players should do during the national anthem, and just how respectful they should be. When you look at the NBA instead, and the NBA again always takes the side of the players. It really is a players' league. The NBA always takes the side of the players, or majority of the time takes the side of the players. And that feeds to just a better platform for social movement and change for all the people that the NBA is attempting to give a platform to all of the oppressed individuals that the NBA is hoping to allow the voices to rise above their professional sports platform and carry into the stratosphere and become its own thing. And that's what the NBA at least provides the opportunity for social movements to do that. The NBA postponed playoff games when they went to decide a protest away from professional sports, and just look at everything that's going on right now and a lot of the injustices and prejudices going on, and say, look, we need to take a step back, and we need to acknowledge the important things in the world, acknowledge the important things in life and within our society, and that we are in a state of turmoil right now. And we need to use our status of celebrity to elevate the conversation to a more national level. It's already here, but to provide more voices to it and more ample individuals to advocate for the movement. And that's what the NBA players did, and the NBA supported the players. The NBA wasn't like, how dare the players do this? How could they? The NFL, if this happened in the NFL, I guarantee you the NFL would just get replacement players, like they did back in the 80s when the NFL players went on strike, and they hired replacement players for all these teams. And it was a train wreck, but the NFL was just saying, look, we will move on without you. It may not be pretty, but we'll do it. And I don't think the league's changed at all, and that's a very sad thing to say, because 1980s were a long time ago. We've come a long way since then, but the league is staying there. The league has remained steadfastly in its own parameters that make it comfortable. And in order to be a really influential league within any professional sports, I think in our modern day, with what people are looking for from athletes and advocates within the leagues, is someone that can step above, their business and sporting platforms, and just generally say what is right from wrong, and what people should try and put their time and energy behind. That's what professional sports leagues now are trying to do, and what a lot of athletes, majority of athletes, are trying to do with their platform is advocate. So where's the NFL? The players in the league certainly want to advocate for social change and mobility, and the league is just, they're staying mum. They're staying quiet on this subject, and that just won't do.